Clara's knees hit the frozen ground. Her arms tightened around Lucy as the child's body went limp against her chest. 5 months of walking. 5 months of closed doors and cruel whispers. And now, at the edge of a stranger's fence line, her daughter had stopped shivering. That terrified her more than anything. "Please," Clara whispered to no one. "Please, not her." A man's voice cut through the wind. "Ma'am." She looked up. A rancher stood 10 feet away, wire cutters frozen in his hand, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. If you want to see how one act of kindness changed 2 lives forever, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The child weighed nothing. That was Nathaniel Cole's first thought as he lifted the girl from her mother's arms. Bones wrapped in cotton. A sparrow made of dust and hunger. The woman fought him for half a second before her strength gave out. "I got her," Nate said. "I got her. Come on now." The mother tried to stand. Her legs buckled. Nate caught her elbow with his free hand, steadying her against his shoulder while the child hung limp in his other arm. "My daughter. She's breathing. Feel that she's breathing." The woman's hand flew to the girl's chest. She held it there, counting heartbeats, tears cutting through the dirt on her face. "Can you walk?" Nate asked. Yes. She couldn't. He saw it clear as day. But she locked her knees and put one foot in front of the other, following him toward the ranch house, through snow that came up past her ankles. Her boots had holes in them. He could see her bare skin through the leather. "Mrs. Chen," Nate hollered as they reached the porch. "Mrs. Chen, I need you." The door flew open. A Chinese woman in her late 50s appeared. Gray hair pulled back tight, dark eyes taking in the situation in one sweep. "Bring them in, kitchen, now." Nate carried the child through the door. The warmth hit them like a wall. The mother gasped, swayed, grabbed the door frame. "Sit," Mrs. Chen commanded, pointing to a chair by the stove. "You, sit before you fall." The woman shook her head. "My daughter first, please. She hasn't eaten in—" "I feed her. You sit. Can't help child if you're dead on my floor." Something in Mrs. Chen's voice broke through. The woman sank into the chair, her whole body trembling. Not from cold anymore, from relief. Nate laid the girl on the kitchen table. Mrs. Chen was already moving heating milk-tearing bread into small pieces, her hands steady and sure. "She conscious?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Don't know." "Little one." Mrs. Chen leaned close to the child's face. "Little one, can you hear me?" The girl's eyelids fluttered. A small sound escaped her throat. "Good. Good girl. Stay awake now. Food coming." The mother lurched forward. "Lucy! Lucy, baby mama's here." "Lucy!" Mrs. Chen softened her voice. "Pretty name. Lucy, I have warm milk. You want some?" The child's eyes opened, huge and brown and ancient with hunger. She looked at Mrs. Chen, at Nate, at the kitchen around her. Then she found her mother. "Mama? I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Are we dead?" The mother's face crumpled. "No, sweetheart. We're not dead. We're safe." Nate stepped back, giving them space. His hands were shaking. He'd seen hungry cattle, seen horses worked near to death, but he'd never seen a child ask her mother if they'd died. Mrs. Chen brought the warm milk. She helped Lucy sit up, held the cup to her lips. "Small sips, small. Don't rush." Lucy drank, slowly, carefully, like she'd learned the hard way what happened when you gulped. The mother watched every swallow. Her hands gripped her knees so hard her knuckles went white. She wasn't looking at the bread Mrs. Chen had set aside, wasn't looking at anything but her daughter's throat moving. "When did she eat last?" Nate asked quietly. The woman didn't take her eyes off Lucy. "2 days ago. Woman in Billings gave her a biscuit." "And you?" Silence. "Ma'am, when did you eat last?" "She needed it more." That wasn't an answer. Nate knew it. She knew he knew it. 3 days, maybe 4, maybe longer. He'd seen men go that long on cattle drives, but they were strong and fed before the trip. This woman looked like wind could knock her over. Mrs. Chen brought bread soaked in warm milk to Lucy. The child ate without speaking, focused entirely on the food. Her mother finally looked away, and Nate saw her throat work, saw the effort it took not to snatch the bread herself. "There's enough," he said. "For both of you. I'll work for it. You'll eat first. I won't take charity." Her voice cracked on the word. "I'll work. Laundry, mending, cooking, cleaning. Whatever you need. She stopped, swallowed, started again. "I can earn our keep. I'm asking for a chance, not a handout." Nate looked at her properly for the first time. Really looked. Her dress had been blue once. Now it was gray with road dust and wear. Her hair was pulled back in a braid coming loose at the ends, but clean. Her face was all sharp angles, cheekbones, two prominent shadows under her eyes. But her posture was straight. Her fingernails were clean, and her eyes, gray-blue and burning, held his without flinching. She wasn't begging. She was negotiating. "What's your name?" he asked. "Clara Dawson. This is my daughter Lucy." "Nate Cole. This is my ranch." "Mr. Cole." Clara's hands tightened on her knees. "I understand if you want us gone by morning, but if you could spare just a little work, half a day, I can prove my worth. I'm stronger than I look." "Mrs. Dawson." "I know what it looks like." Her voice went flat. "Woman alone, child in tow, showing up at a stranger's door. I know what people think. But I'm not looking for a husband or a protector or someone to take care of me. I'm looking for honest work. That's all." Mrs. Chen set a bowl of stew in front of Lucy. The child's eyes went wide. "All of this for me. For you," Mrs. Chen said. "Eat slow. Stomach not used to food." Lucy looked at her mother, waiting. Clara nodded once. "Say grace first, baby." The child bowed her head. Her small voice filled the kitchen. "Thank you, Lord, for this food. Thank you for kind people. Amen." "Amen," Clara whispered. Lucy picked up the spoon with trembling fingers. She ate like Mrs. Chen told her, slow and careful, but her face transformed with each bite. Color came back to her cheeks, light came back to her eyes. Clara watched. She didn't touch the bread Mrs. Chen had placed in front of her. "Eat," Mrs. Chen said. You insult me. You don't eat my food." Clara blinked. Something almost like a smile crossed her face. "That's not fair." "Life not fair. Eat anyway." Clara picked up the bread. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. She took one bite, and her eyes closed. Tears leaked from the corners, sliding down her hollow cheeks. Nate turned away, busied himself with the coffee pot. Some things weren't meant to be watched. "The guest cabin," he said to Mrs. Chen. "Is it ready?" "I make ready. 20 minutes. "Good." Nate poured himself coffee he didn't want. "Mrs. Dawson, you and your daughter will sleep there tonight. Tomorrow we can talk about what comes next." Clara's head snapped up. "I told you I'll work. And I heard you." Nate turned to face her. "But tonight you rest. Your daughter needs it. So do you." "I can start now. Dishes, anything." "Mrs. Dawson?" Nate set down his cup. "I ain't in the habit of putting starving women to work. And I ain't in the habit of arguing with folks in my own kitchen. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow we talk. That's the deal." Clara stared at him. He could see her calculating, measuring, trying to find the trap. She'd learned to look for traps. That told him plenty about the last few months. "Why?" she asked finally. "You don't know me." "I know enough." "What do you know?" Nate leaned against the counter. "I know you fed your daughter before yourself, probably for weeks. I know you kept her clean, even when you couldn't keep her fed. I know you taught her to say grace, which means you got faith even when life's given you no reason for it. He paused. And I know you offered work instead of asking for help. That tells me what kind of woman you are. Clara's jaw tightened. She looked away. Mama? Lucy had stopped eating. Can we stay? The question hung in the air. Clara's hand found her daughter's shoulder, squeezed. We'll see, baby. But I like it here. It's warm. I know. And the lady gave me stew. I know. And the man has kind eyes. Clara's breath caught. She looked at Nate, something raw and wounded in her expression. He held her gaze steady. Your daughter's smart, he said. She is. So listen to her. Stay the night. Rest. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. A long moment passed. Nate watched Clara fight with herself, watched pride and exhaustion and desperate hope war across her face. Finally, her shoulders dropped. One night, Mrs. Chen appeared with a pile of quilts. Cabin ready. I put extra blankets. Cold tonight. Clara stood, swayed. Nate stepped forward, but she caught herself before he could reach her. I'm fine. Sure you are. I am. Then you won't mind me walking you out there, in case you're fine right into a snowdrift. That almost smile again. You're stubborn, Mr. Cole. It's been mentioned. Lucy had finished her stew. She slid off the chair and reached for her mother's hand. Her other hand found Nate's small fingers wrapping around his rough ones. Thank you for not letting us die, she said solemnly. Nate's chest did something complicated. He crouched down to the child's level. You weren't going to die, little one. Mama thought we might. She prayed a lot. Lucy. Clara's voice was sharp. It's all right. Nate kept his eyes on the girl. Your mama's prayers got answered, didn't they? Found you a warm place to sleep and food in your belly. That's what prayers are for. Lucy considered this. Do you pray, Mr. Cole? Sometimes. What do you pray for? He thought about it. That I do right by the people who need it. Lucy smiled. It transformed her whole face, made her look like a regular 5-year-old instead of a starving refugee. I think you do. Nate stood. Clara was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Come on, he said. Let's get you both settled. The walk to the cabin was short, but brutal. Wind cut through the yard, driving snow sideways. Nate kept himself between the worst of it and Clara blocking what he could. She didn't argue. That told him how tired she really was. The cabin was small but solid. One room, a bed against the far wall, a wood stove already glowing with heat. Mrs. Chen had been busy. It's not much, Nate said. Clara stood in the doorway, Lucy pressed against her legs. She was crying again silently, tears streaming down her face. It's everything, she whispered. Nate nodded. Breakfast is at 6. If you're hungry before that, come to the main house. Mrs. Chen'll be up. Mr. Cole? Get some sleep, Mrs. Dawson. He turned to leave. Her voice stopped him. My husband was a good man. Nate looked back. Clara's chin was raised defiant as if she expected him to challenge her. I believe you, he said. He died of fever, last winter. There were debts I didn't know about. We lost everything. She paused. I want you to know, I wasn't always like this. Doesn't matter what you were. Matters what you are. And what am I? Nate held her gaze. A woman who walked through hell to keep her daughter alive. That's enough for me. He left before she could respond. The wind hit him hard when he stepped outside, but he barely felt it. His mind was back in that kitchen, watching a child ask her mother if they were dead. Mrs. Chen was waiting on the porch when he returned. You give her job tomorrow, she said. It wasn't a question. I was thinking about it. Good. She proud. Pride can be broken. Don't break hers. I won't. Mrs. Chen nodded. Good man, Nathaniel Cole. Your mother would be proud. She went inside before he could answer. Nate stayed on the porch watching the light in the cabin window. Clara was moving around inside, probably settling Lucy into bed. Probably collapsing herself, finally giving in to the exhaustion she'd been fighting. 5 months, she'd said. 5 months of walking, of closed doors, of people turning away. He thought about his own mother. How she'd raised him after his father died, working herself raw to keep the ranch going. She'd had pride too. Fierce, stubborn pride that wouldn't let her ask for help, even when help was offered. She'd died still working. Heart gave out in the kitchen. Mrs. Chen had found her. Nate had sworn then that he'd never let another woman work herself to death on his land. But he'd also sworn he'd never insult a woman by treating her like she couldn't earn her way. Clara Dawson wasn't asking for charity. She was asking for a chance. He could give her that. The light in the cabin went out. Nate stood there a moment longer, snow gathering on his shoulders, then went inside. Clara couldn't sleep. The bed was soft, too soft. After months of barn floors and frozen ground, she didn't know what to do with softness. Lucy was curled against her side, finally warm, finally full, breathing deep and even. But Clara's mind wouldn't stop. She kept seeing the rancher's face when he'd lifted Lucy, the way his jaw had tightened, the way his eyes had gone hard and then soft in the same moment. He'd looked at her daughter like she mattered, like she was a person, not a burden. No one had looked at them that way in months. In Billings, a woman had spit at Clara's feet, called her a vagrant, a beggar worse. In Helena, a shopkeeper had threatened to call the sheriff if she didn't move on. In every town, the same story. Sympathy sometimes from women who recognize the desperation in her eyes. But never help, never real help. Your kind brings trouble, they said. Find yourself a husband. Go back where you came from. She had nowhere to come from. That was the truth no one wanted to hear. Her parents were dead. Daniel's family had washed their hands of her when the debt surfaced. There was no home waiting, no relatives to take them, and no safety net of any kind. Just Clara and Lucy, and the endless, merciless road. And now this. A cabin with a stove. A bed with quilts. A bowl of stew that Lucy had eaten like it was manna from heaven. Clara didn't trust it. She'd learned not to trust. The world had taught her that lesson with brutal efficiency. Kindness came with conditions. Help came with expectations. Nothing was free. So what did Nate Cole want? She'd seen his eyes on her, not the hungry way some men looked, sizing her up like livestock. Something different. Something she couldn't name. Maybe that was worse. Lucy stirred in her sleep, murmured something. Clara pulled her closer. It's okay, baby. Mama's here. Tomorrow she'd work. Whatever they asked, she'd do it. She'd earn every bite they'd given Lucy, every moment of warmth, every second of safety. And when she'd proven herself, maybe there'd be more. Not hope. She couldn't afford hope. But possibility. The thinnest sliver of possibility. It was more than she'd had yesterday. Clara closed her eyes. The wind howled outside, rattling the cabin windows, but for the first time in 5 months, she couldn't feel it. Morning came gray and cold. Clara woke before dawn, habit too strong to break. Lucy was still sleeping, burrowed under the quilts like a small hibernating animal. Clara let her rest. She dressed in the same worn dress, finger-combed her hair into a fresh braid, and stepped outside. The ranch spread before her in the early light. Main house solid and weathered. Barn twice the size. Corrals where horses moved lazily despite the cold. Men were emerging from a building she assumed was the bunkhouse, heading to morning chores. One of them spotted her. Young, maybe 19, with red hair and a face full of freckles. He touched his hat. Morning, ma'am. Good morning. You the lady boss brought in last night? Yes. The young man grinned. I'm Tommy Brennan. If you need anything, just holler. He moved off toward the barn before Clara could respond. She stood there, uncertain, watching the ranch come alive. "You're up early." She turned. Nate Cole stood on the main house porch, coffee cup in hand. He was dressed for work boots and heavy coat hat already on. "I'm used to early," Clara said. "Breakfast'll be ready in half an hour. Mrs. Chen makes enough for an army." "I can help." "You don't have to, Mr. Cole." Clara walked toward him, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps. "You said we'd talk this morning. I'm ready to talk." He studied her. Same measuring look from last night, like he was seeing past her face to something underneath. "All right," he said. "Come on up." The kitchen was warm, coffee already brewing, something that smelled like bacon sizzling on the stove. Mrs. Chen nodded at Clara without pausing her work. "Sit. Coffee. Please." Clara sat at the table, the same chair from last night. Her stomach clenched at the smell of food, but she ignored it. Business first. Nate sat across from her. He wrapped both hands around his cup, and Clara noticed the calluses, the small scars. Working hands, like Daniel's had been. "I've got a proposition," he said. "I'm listening." "The ranch has 12 hands. Mrs. Chen handles the house, but laundry for that many is too much for one person. So is mending, preserving food for winter, all of it." He paused. "I need help. And you want me to provide it. I want to offer you the job. Fair wages, $1 a day room and board for you and Lucy." Clara blinked. $1 a day was generous. More than generous. She knew what women's work paid in the territories. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why so much you could get someone for half that?" "Probably could." Nate shrugged. "But I'm not in the habit of underpaying people who work for me, man or woman. The other hands, they make $1 a day. About that, depending on experience." Clara sat back, tried to find the angle, the catch, the hidden cost. Couldn't find one. What about Lucy? What about her? "She can help. Gather eggs, small tasks. I won't have her be the burden. She's 5 years old. She's capable." Nate's mouth twitched. "I reckon she can help if she wants. But she ain't required. She's not part of the deal." "Then what are you paying for? Just my labor?" "Just your labor." He met her eyes. "Is that a problem?" Clara's throat tightened. No, it's not a problem." "So you'll take the job?" She should negotiate, should push for more, prove she wasn't desperate. But she was desperate, and they both knew it. "I'll take it." "Good." Nate stood, held out his hand. "Welcome to Cole Ranch, Mrs. Dawson." Clara stood, took his hand. His grip was firm but careful, like he was holding something fragile. "I'll earn every penny," she said. "I know you will." The door to the kitchen burst open. Lucy stood there, wild-haired and wild-eyed, panic written across her face. Mama, you weren't there." Clara was across the room in an instant, scooping her daughter up, holding her tight. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I just came to talk to Mr. Cole." Lucy's arms wrapped around her neck. "I thought you left. I thought—" "Never. I would never leave you. Remember, we stay together." "Always?" "Always." Lucy's breathing slowed. She noticed Nate watching them with an expression Clara couldn't read. "Good morning, Mr. Cole." "Morning, Lucy. Sleep okay?" "Yes, sir." The bed was soft. "Glad to hear it." Nate crouched down to her level, same way he had last night. "How would you like to stay here for a while? Your mama's going to work for me." Lucy's face lit up. "Really? We can stay. If you want to." Lucy looked at Clara. "Can we, Mama? Can we?" Clara stroked her daughter's hair. "Yes, baby. We can stay." The smile that broke across Lucy's face was the first real one Clara had seen in months. It cracked something open in her chest, something she'd kept locked away since Daniel died. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. "Mrs. Chen," Nate said, "think we could find some breakfast for our new employee and her daughter." "Already making." Mrs. Chen set plates on the table. Bacon eggs, biscuits still steaming. Sit. Eat. Work comes later. Lucy climbed into a chair, eyes huge at the spread before her. Clara sat beside her, hand on her daughter's back. Say grace, baby. Lucy folded her hands. Thank you, Lord, for this food. Thank you for our new home. Thank you for kind people. She paused. And thank you for answering Mama's prayers. Amen. Amen, Clara whispered. Across the table, Nate was watching her. When their eyes met, he nodded once. Just once. Clara picked up her fork. For the first time in 5 months, she let herself believe tomorrow might be better than today. The first week nearly broke her. Clara's hands bled by the 3rd day. The lye soap ate through her skin, leaving raw patches that stung with every shirt she scrubbed. She wrapped them in rags and kept working. You're going to ruin your hands, Mrs. Chen said, watching her wring out a pair of work trousers. They'll toughen up. Let me see. Clara held them out. Mrs. Chen hissed through her teeth. Stubborn woman. Wait here. She returned with a tin of salve, something that smelled of herbs and rendered fat. She took Clara's hands without asking permission and began working the ointment into the cracked skin. My mother made this, Mrs. Chen said. Back in China. Good for working hands. It stings. Good medicine always stings. Mrs. Chen's fingers were gentle despite her words. You push too hard, Clara. No one expects you to wash whole ranch in 1 week. I expect it. Why? Clara pulled her hands back. Because the moment I slow down is the moment someone decides I'm not worth keeping around. Mrs. Chen studied her with those sharp, dark eyes. Who taught you that? Everyone. Not everyone. Not here. Clara didn't answer. She turned back to the washtub, plunging her hands into the water despite the sting. Mrs. Chen watched for a moment, then left without another word. That night, Clara found fresh bandages and more salve on her pillow. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or ashamed. Lucy adjusted faster than Clara thought possible. Within days, she was following Mrs. Chen around the kitchen, learning to crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl, stirring pots that were too heavy for her to lift. Your daughter has good hands, Mrs. Chen told Clara. Quick learner. She gets that from her father. What else she get from father? Clara paused in her mending. His smile, his stubbornness, his way of seeing the good in people. That last one may be from you too. No. Clara's needle moved through the fabric. I lost that somewhere on the road. Mrs. Chen said nothing, but Clara felt her watching. The ranch hands were polite, almost careful around her. They said good morning, tipped their hats, brought their mending to the basket outside the main house without complaint. Tommy Brennan was the friendliest, always grinning, always chattering about something or nothing. You're doing real good, Mrs. Dawson, he told her one afternoon. Shirts ain't been this clean since, well, ever, I reckon. Thank you, Tommy. My ma used to do laundry back in Boston, before we came west, said it was honest work. It is. Tommy's grin faded slightly. She died on the crossing, cholera. Clara's hands stilled. I'm sorry. Was a long time ago. He shrugged, but his eyes told a different story. Mr. Cole found me in Butte, half-starved and looking for work. Gave me a chance when no one else would. He seems to make a habit of that. He does. Tommy tipped his hat. Guess that's why we all stay. He walked off toward the barn, leaving Clara with her thoughts and a pile of wet shirts. Sam Garrett, the foreman, was harder to read. A tall black man in his 40s, he moved through the ranch like he owned it, giving orders with quiet authority. The hands respected him, Clara could see that. They jumped when he spoke. She'd been there a week before he addressed her directly. Mrs. Dawson. Clara looked up from the clothesline. Mr. Garrett. Sam. Everyone calls me Sam. Sam, then. He stood with his arms crossed, studying her the way he might study a horse he was considering buying. You're working yourself hard. Is that a problem? Depends on why you're doing it. Clara clipped a shirt to the line. I'm doing it because it needs to be done. No, you're doing it because you're scared. You think if you stop being useful for 1 second, someone's going to throw you out. She turned to face him fully. And you know this how? Because I've been where you are. Sam's voice stayed even. Came here 12 years ago with nothing but the clothes on my back and a wife who believed in me more than I believed in myself. Mr. Cole gave us work when most folks wouldn't even look at us. Ruth, I've seen her. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Almost lost her twice because I was too proud to ask for help when we needed it. He paused. Pride's useful. Keeps you going when nothing else will. But it can also be a cage. Clara's jaw tightened. I appreciate the wisdom, Sam. But I've got laundry to finish. Fair enough. He turned to go, then stopped. One more thing. Mr. Cole, he's a good man. Probably the best I've ever known. Don't make the mistake of thinking he wants something from you. Some people just do right because it's right. He walked away before she could respond. That night, Clara lay awake in the cabin listening to Lucy's soft breathing, thinking about cages and pride, and men who did right because it was right. She didn't believe it, couldn't afford to, but a small part of her wanted to. 2 weeks in, Clara discovered something that changed everything. She was cleaning Nate's office, dusting shelves she'd been avoiding when she knocked over a stack of papers. They scattered across the floor, and she dropped to her knees to gather them. Numbers. Columns of numbers in careful handwriting. Supply costs, cattle prices, feed expenses. A ranch ledger. Clara's breath caught. She knew these numbers. Not these specifically, but this language. Daniel had taught her bookkeeping in the long winters on their homestead. She'd kept their accounts tracked, every penny stretched, every dollar. She wasn't supposed to be looking. She knew that. But her eyes moved over the columns anyway, and what she saw made her frown. The figures were wrong. Not dramatically wrong. But there were errors, small ones, that added up. Feed costs recorded twice in one column. A payment to the blacksmith listed under the wrong month. The kind of mistakes anyone could make, but mistakes that would compound over time. Find something interesting. Clara jumped. Nate stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I'm sorry. I knocked them over. I wasn't trying to. I know. He walked in, crouched beside her, started gathering papers. I'm not much of a bookkeeper. Sam's worse. We manage, but it's a mess. Clara hesitated. I could help. Help how? I can do figures, keep accounts. My husband taught me. She picked up another page, pointed at a line. This entry here, you've recorded the same expense twice. And this one, the dates don't match the totals. Nate's eyebrows rose. You can see that just by looking. Numbers make sense to me. They always have. He sat back on his heels, studying her with that same measuring look. Most women don't know bookkeeping. Most women aren't taught. I was lucky. Lucky. Something flickered in his eyes. Or smart enough to learn when you had the chance? Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm not trying to overstep. The laundry work is enough. I just thought... I think, Nate said slowly, that I just found out my new employee is worth a hell of a lot more than I'm paying her. Clara blinked. What? You want to help with the books? I won't say no. God knows I could use someone who actually knows what they're doing. He paused. But that means more work, more hours. You sure you want that? I'm sure. Why? Because sitting idle makes me crazy. The words came out before she could stop them. Because when I'm working, I'm not thinking about everything I've lost. Because if I'm useful, really useful, then maybe... She stopped. She'd said too much. Maybe what? Nate asked quietly. Maybe I'll stop feeling like a ghost waiting to disappear. The silence stretched between them. Clara's heart hammered. She'd exposed too much, shown too much weakness. Then Nate nodded. I know that feeling. You do. This ranch, I built it from nothing. 20 years of work. Some days it's the only thing that tells me I'm real. He stood, offered her his hand. You're not a ghost, Clara. Not here. She took his hand. Let him pull her up. Their fingers touched longer than necessary before both stepped back. I'll have Mrs. Chen show you where we keep the account books, Nate said. Start when you're ready. He left. Clara stood alone in the office, heart still pounding, trying to remember the last time anyone had seen her, really seen her. She couldn't. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of laundry and mending and accounts that actually balanced. 3 weeks of Lucy's laughter filling the kitchen, of Mrs. Chen's quiet wisdom, of Tommy's terrible jokes, and Sam's steady presence. 3 weeks of pretending she didn't notice the way Nate watched her. Clara told herself it was nothing. He was her employer. She was his hired help. There was nothing between them except work and gratitude, and the strange comfort of being around someone who didn't expect anything from her except honest labor. But she noticed him too. The way he moved through the ranch, sure and capable. The way he crouched down to Lucy's level when he talked to her, never talking down, always talking to. The way he defended Sam against a cattle buyer who called him boy, his voice going cold and hard until the man apologized. The way he looked at Clara sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching, like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. It terrified her. You're thinking too loud, Mrs. Chen said one evening. They were in the kitchen, Clara helping prepare supper, Lucy setting the table with careful concentration. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Mrs. Chen's hands never stopped moving, chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. He's good man. I know. You're good woman. Mrs. Chen. I just say what I see. The older woman smiled slightly. I also see you're afraid. That's okay. Fear is smart, but fear forever is prison. Clara opened her mouth to respond, but the door burst open. Tommy stood there, face pale, breathing hard. Mrs. Dawson, you need to come to town, now. What, why? There's trouble. Tommy's eyes darted to Lucy, then back to Clara. Someone's saying things about you. Mr. Cole's trying to handle it, but what kind of things? Tommy looked miserable. Bad things, ma'am. Real bad. Clara's stomach dropped. She'd known this was coming. Known it from the first day. You couldn't be a woman alone working on a man's ranch without people talking. Lucy, stay with Mrs. Chen. But Mama, stay here. Clara grabbed her shawl. I mean it. She followed Tommy to the wagon, her heart pounding with every step. The general store was crowded when they arrived, too crowded for a regular afternoon. Clara saw faces turn toward her as Tommy helped her down from the wagon. Saw whispers spread like ripples in water. Nate stood near the counter facing a woman Clara didn't recognize. Tall, elegant, dressed in clothes that cost more than Clara had ever owned. Her voice carried through the store, sharp and cutting. I'm simply saying what everyone else is thinking, Mr. Cole. A widow woman living on your property with a child. And you expect us to believe there's nothing improper happening. Mrs. Crawford, I've explained. You've explained nothing. The woman's laugh was brittle. We all know why men take in strays. The question is whether you have any shame about it. Clara pushed through the crowd before she could stop herself. I beg your pardon? The woman turned. Her eyes swept over Clara, dismissive and contemptuous. So this is her, the beggar woman. My name is Clara Dawson, and I'm no beggar. No. Then what do you call showing up at a man's ranch, starving and helpless with a child in tow? Mrs. Crawford smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Some might call that strategy. Some might call it survival. Is there a difference? Clara's hands trembled at her sides. I work for Mr. Cole. Honest work for honest wages. Whatever you're implying, I'm not implying anything. Mrs. Crawford's voice rose, playing to the crowd. I'm stating facts. A woman alone has no business living on an unmarried man's property. It's improper, it's scandalous, and it reflects poorly on our entire community. Eleanor. Nate's voice cut through like a whip. That's enough. Is it because I don't think the other wives in this town would agree? She gestured at the watching women, some of whom looked uncomfortable, others nodding along. We have standards here, Mr. Cole. Standards you're apparently willing to ignore for a pretty face and a sad story. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. Pretty face, sad story. Like she was nothing but a combination of circumstances designed to trap a man. I think, a new voice said, that you should stop talking now, Eleanor. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, middle-aged, plain-faced, with kind eyes and work-roughened hands. Clara didn't know her. This doesn't concern you, Catherine, Mrs. Crawford said. It concerns everyone in this store, including those of us who remember what it's like to struggle. Catherine turned to Clara. I'm Catherine Wells. My husband runs the smithy. And I think what you've done keeping yourself and your daughter alive through a Montana winter is nothing short of miraculous. Catherine, Mrs. Crawford started. I'm not finished. Catherine's voice hardened. You stand there in your silk dress, Eleanor, judging this woman. When's the last time you went hungry? When's the last time you worked until your hands bled? When's the last time you had to choose between feeding yourself and feeding your child? The store went silent. Mrs. Crawford's face reddened. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't. But maybe you should. Catherine took Clara's arm. Come on, dear. Let's get you some air. She guided Clara outside away from the staring eyes and whispered judgments. Nate followed his expression thunderous. I'm sorry, he said once they were clear of the crowd. I should have warned you. Eleanor Crawford has been difficult since her husband died. She blames me for something I didn't do. She blames everyone for everything. Catherine patted Clara's arm. Don't let her poison you. Most folks in this town aren't like her. Could have fooled me. The quiet ones, Nate said. They're watching, making up their own minds. What happened in there? Catherine's standing up for you that matters. Clara looked at him. Why do you care? What people think? Because it affects you, and Lucy. We can leave. If it's causing you trouble, don't. Nate's voice was sharp, sharper than she'd ever heard it. Don't you dare run because Eleanor Crawford has a vicious tongue and too much time on her hands. It's not about running, it's about protecting. Protecting what your pride. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I didn't hire you because I felt sorry for you. I hired you because you're worth every penny I pay, and then some. The books haven't been this clean in years. The hands have never had better mended clothes. Mrs. Chen has help she's needed for longer than she'd ever admit. Clara's eyes stung. You're making it sound like I'm valuable. You are valuable. His voice dropped further. When are you going to start believing that? She couldn't answer. The words stuck in her throat, trapped behind years of being told she was a burden, a problem, a mouth to feed. Catherine cleared her throat. I should get back, but Clara, come by the smithy sometime. My daughter is about your girl's age. Maybe they could play together. Thank you. I will. Catherine left. Clara and Nate stood alone, the winter wind cutting between them. We should get back, Clara said finally. Lucy will worry. Clara. She looked up. His face was closer than it should be. Close enough that she could see the individual lines around his eyes, the gray just starting at his temples. I meant what I said. Every word. I know. Do you? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because if she did, she'd have to admit that something was changing. Something she couldn't control and didn't understand. Something that felt dangerous and wonderful and absolutely terrifying. Let's go home, she said instead. The word slipped out without her permission. Home. She'd called it home. Nate's eyes flickered, catching the word holding it. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Let's go home." They rode back to the ranch in silence. But it was a different kind of silence now. Fuller. Heavier with things unsaid. Clara watched the snow-covered fields pass by, Mrs. Crawford's words still echoing in her mind. Improper. Scandalous. Pretty face and sad story. She'd known this would happen. Known from the moment she'd accepted Nate's offer that people would talk. That they'd assume the worst. That her presence would become a weapon others could use against him. And still she'd stayed. Because Lucy was thriving. Because Mrs. Chen felt like family. Because for the first time in months, Clara could breathe. Because Nate Cole looked at her like she was valuable, and God help her, she wanted to believe him. The ranch appeared over the hill, smoke rising from the chimneys, warm light glowing in the windows. Lucy burst out the door before the wagon even stopped, running through the snow, arms outstretched. "Mama, you're back. Mrs. Chen let me help make dumplings." Clara caught her, lifted her, held her tight. Over Lucy's shoulder she saw Mrs. Chen in the doorway, saw the older woman's knowing expression. "Good trip?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Interesting," Nate said. "Town people talk." "Town people always talk." Mrs. Chen nodded, like this confirmed something she'd already known. "Supper's ready. Come eat before it gets cold." They went inside. The kitchen was warm, fragrant with cooking. Sam and Ruth had joined them, their presence comfortable and easy. Tommy arrived minutes later, sheepish and apologetic. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Dawson. I should have warned you more. Should have. You did fine, Tommy." Clara squeezed his shoulder. "You came to get me. That's what mattered." They ate together, all of them crowded around the kitchen table that was meant for half as many people. Lucy chattered about her day, about the dumplings, about the new kitten she'd found in the barn. Ruth laughed at something Sam said. Mrs. Chen pretended to scold Tommy for taking too many biscuits. It felt like family. Clara caught Nate's eye across the table. He was watching her again, that same expression she couldn't quite read. She looked away first. Later, after Lucy was asleep and the cabin was quiet, Clara sat by the window watching snow fall over the ranch. Her hands had finally started to heal. The raw patches were becoming calluses, tough and serviceable. She was changing. Not just her hands. Something deeper. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's me!" Nate's voice came through the wood. Clara hesitated, then opened it. He stood on the porch, coat dusted with snow, hat in his hands. "It's late," she said. "I know. I just—" He trailed off, uncharacteristically uncertain. "I wanted to make sure you were all right. After today." "I'm fine." "Are you?" Clara leaned against the doorframe. "I've survived worse than Eleanor Crawford." "I don't doubt it." He paused. "But surviving and being all right aren't the same thing." "No, they're not." They stood there, snow falling between them, neither speaking. Clara could feel the warmth from the cabin at her back, the cold from outside on her face. Two worlds perfectly balanced. "What are you thinking?" Nate asked. "That I should go back inside. And what are you feeling?" The question surprised her. No one had asked her that in longer than she could remember. "Scared," she admitted. "Grateful. Confused." "About what?" "About you." The words came out before she could stop them. "About why you're standing on my porch at 10 o'clock at night asking if I'm all right. About why you defended me to Eleanor Crawford like my reputation was worth defending. About why every time I convince myself this is just business, you do something that makes me think it's not." Nate's expression shifted, softened. "Would it be so bad if it wasn't just business?" Clara's heart stopped. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I can't afford to want things, Nate." His first name slipped out, intimate and dangerous. "Every time I've wanted something, I've lost it. My parents, Daniel, our home, everything." Her voice cracked. "I can't lose this too." "Who says you'd lose it?" "Experience." He stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell pine and wood smoke, and something that was just him. What if experience was wrong? He asked. What if this time was different? How could it be? Because I'm not going anywhere. His voice was low and tense. Because I've spent 20 years building something I thought was enough, and then you showed up and made me realize I was just waiting for something, for someone. Nate, I'm not asking for anything. He held up a hand. I know you're not ready. I know you need time. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that not everyone leaves, that some things are worth risking. Clara's eyes burned. And if I can't consider it, then I'll wait. He stepped back, putting space between them. However long it takes. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the snow and darkness. Clara stood in the doorway until she couldn't feel her fingers anymore. Until the cold seeped through her dress and into her bones. Then she went inside, closed the door, and cried for the first time since Daniel died. Not from grief this time. From hope. Clara avoided Nate for 3 days. She took her meals early before he came to the kitchen. She worked in the far corners of the ranch places she knew he wouldn't be. When their paths crossed, she nodded politely and kept moving. He let her. That was the worst part. He didn't push, didn't demand explanations, just watched her with those steady eyes and gave her space she wasn't sure she wanted. You're being ridiculous, Mrs. Chen said on the 4th morning. Clara kept scrubbing the already clean pot. I don't know what you mean. You know exactly. Mrs. Chen took the pot from her hands. Man tells you he cares. You run like rabbit. I'm not running. I'm being careful. Same thing, different words. Clara's jaw tightened. You don't understand. I understand plenty. Mrs. Chen set the pot aside. I understand you lost husband, lost home, lost everything you thought was safe. I understand you're scared. Then you understand why I can't. I understand why you think you can't. Mrs. Chen's voice softened. But thinking and truth are different things. The kitchen door opened. Tommy stumbled in face, flushed, breathing hard. Mrs. Chen, Mrs. Dawson, Mr. Whitfield's here, from the bank. Clara's stomach dropped. She'd heard that name before. Nate had mentioned him once briefly when going over the accounts. The mortgage holder, the man who controlled the ranch's future. Where? Mrs. Chen asked. Main house. Boss asked me to fetch Sam. Tommy's eyes darted between them. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Clara dried her hands without thinking. Stay with Lucy. Ma'am? Please, Tommy. Keep her in the kitchen. She was out the door before he could argue. The main house parlor felt smaller with Marcus Whitfield in it. He was a large man, not fat, but substantial, with the soft hands of someone who'd never done physical labor. His suit cost more than most ranch hands earned in a year. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Nate stood by the window, arms crossed, face unreadable. Sam was beside him, solid and silent. Clara stopped in the doorway, uncertain whether to enter. Ah! Whitfield's gaze found her. The famous Mrs. Dawson. I'm sorry. News travels in small towns. He gestured at the chair across from him. Please, join us. This concerns you after all. Clara looked at Nate. He gave a small nod. She entered but didn't sit. Mr. Whitfield was just explaining his concerns about the ranch's mortgage, Nate said. His voice was flat, dangerous. Concerns? Clara asked. Nothing serious. Whitfield spread his hands. Just a matter of appearances. You see, the bank has relationships with various business interests. The railroad, for instance. They're looking at routes through this area. I'm aware. Then you're aware that the railroad's board members are traditional, conservative in their values. Whitfield's smile widened. An unmarried rancher housing a widow woman on his property raises certain questions. Clara felt her blood go cold. What kind of questions? The kind that make investors nervous. Whitfield leaned back. The kind that might make a bank reconsider the terms of a mortgage. Are you threatening me? Nate's voice could have frozen water. I'm advising you, as your banker, as someone who wants to see you succeed. Whitfield stood. The solution is simple, really. Mrs. Dawson finds alternative arrangements. The gossip dies down. Everyone wins. Except Mrs. Dawson and her daughter. Whitfield shrugged. Sacrifices must be made for progress, Mr. Cole. Surely you understand that. The silence that followed was suffocating. Clara watched Nate's hands curl into fists at his sides. Watched Sam shift slightly, preparing for something. Get out. Nate's voice was quiet. Deadly quiet. I beg your pardon. You heard me. Get out of my house. Whitfield's smile faded. I don't think you understand the position you're in. I understand perfectly. Nate stepped forward. You want my land. You've wanted it since the railroad surveys came through. This isn't about appearances or gossip. This is about leverage. Nate, Clara started, and you thought you could use her. Nate jerked his chin toward Clara. Threatened to ruin her reputation, ruin mine, force me to choose between the ranch and doing what's right. Whitfield's expression hardened. I'm offering you a way out. No, you're offering me a betrayal dressed up as business sense. Nate moved closer, towering over the banker. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to take your threats and your railroad friends and your conservative values back to town. And if I hear one word, one whisper about Mrs. Dawson's character from anyone connected to your bank, I'll make sure every rancher in Montana knows exactly how you do business. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Whitfield gathered his hat and coat, his movements stiff with barely contained anger. At the door he turned. The loan comes due in 6 months, Cole. I hope your principals keep you warm when you lose everything. He left. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Clara couldn't breathe. Nate, what did you just do? What I should have done the moment he opened his mouth. He's going to call in your loan. He's going to... Let me worry about that. I can't let you lose the ranch because of me. Nate turned to face her fully. You're not listening. I didn't do this for you. I did it because it was right. There's no difference. There's every difference. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping inches from her. You think I built this place just to hand it over to men like Whitfield? You think I've spent 20 years fighting drought and disease and market crashes just to cave to a banker with a grudge? But I would burn this ranch to the ground before I let them use you as a bargaining chip. His voice dropped. Do you understand me, Clara? Some things are worth more than land. Sam cleared his throat. I'll go check on the hands. Make sure word doesn't spread before we're ready. He left quietly. Clara barely noticed. You're insane, she whispered. Probably. You just destroyed your relationship with the only bank in 50 miles. There are other banks. Not ones that will give you terms like Whitfield's. I'll figure it out. Clara's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her skirts, trying to steady herself. Why? Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know? Nate's expression softened. I know you, Clara. Better than you think. Better than you know yourself, maybe. You don't. I know you haven't slept through the night since you got here because you're still waiting for someone to take it all away. I know you check on Lucy 3 times before bed, making sure she's warm, making sure she's breathing. I know you cry in the cabin when you think no one can hear. Clara's breath caught. How? The walls are thin. And I don't sleep much either. He reached out, then stopped, his hand hovering in the space between them. I know you're scared. I know you've been hurt. I know you think hoping for anything good is just asking to be destroyed. Then you know I can't. I know you can. I know you want to. His voice was barely above a whisper. I know because I see it in your eyes every time you look at me. Every time you catch yourself smiling. Every time you forget to be afraid. Clara's eyes burned. Nate, I'm not asking for anything, I told you that. But I'm also not going to stand here and pretend I don't feel what I feel. Not anymore. The door burst open. Tommy stood there, face white as snow. Boss, Mrs. Dawson, you need to come, now. What is it? Nate demanded. It's Lucy. Tommy's voice cracked. She's gone. Clara's world stopped. What do you mean gone? She was in the kitchen with Mrs. Chen, then she wasn't. We've looked everywhere. She just vanished. Clara was running before Tommy finished speaking. The kitchen was chaos. Mrs. Chen was issuing orders to ranch hands, her face tight with fear. Ruth was checking the pantry, the root cellar, anywhere a small child might hide. Lucy! Clara screamed. Lucy! No answer. When? Nate's voice cut through the panic. When did you last see her? 20 minutes ago. Mrs. Chen's voice trembled. She was helping me roll dough. I turned to get flour. When I turned back... The door, Clara spun. Was the door open? I don't know. Maybe. Clara ran outside. The snow had started again, heavy and thick, already covering any tracks that might have been there. The wind cut through her dress like knives. Lucy, Lucy, where are you? Nothing. Just wind and snow and silence. Nate appeared beside her, coat in hand. He draped it over her shoulders. We'll find her. She's 5 years old. She's out there alone, in this. She's smart. You raised her smart. Smart doesn't matter if she freezes to death. Sam rode up on horseback, leading 2 more horses. I've got the hands spreading out. Tommy's checking the barn and outbuildings. Billy's riding the fence line. The creek. Clara's blood turned to ice. The creek. She asked me about it yesterday. Asked if fish lived there in winter. Nate and Sam exchanged a look. Without a word, Nate swung onto one horse, pulled Clara up behind him. Hold on. They rode hard toward the creek, snow driving into their faces. Clara's arms wrapped tight around Nate's waist. She couldn't feel her fingers. Couldn't feel anything but the terror clawing at her chest. Please. 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 The prayer repeated with every hoofbeat. The same prayer she'd whispered on the road, in barn corners and charity wards. The prayer that had never been answered. Until Nate. Please. Not her. Anything but her. The creek appeared through the snow, a dark ribbon cutting through white. Nate pulled the horse up short, scanning the bank. There. Sam pointed. A small figure huddled against a fallen log, barely visible through the driving snow. Clara was off the horse before it stopped moving. She ran, stumbled, fell, got up, kept running. Her hands found Lucy's face, her arms, her chest. Lucy! Lucy, baby, wake up! The child's eyes fluttered open. Her lips were blue. Her skin was ice. Mama! I'm here. I'm here, baby. Why did you leave? Why did you... I heard them. Lucy's voice was barely a whisper. The man. The mean one. He said we had to go away. He said we were making trouble. Clara's heart cracked. You heard Mr. Whitfield? He said bad things about you, about Mr. Nate. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, but I got lost. Nate was there, stripping off his coat, wrapping it around Lucy, lifting her into his arms. We need to get her warm, now. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't think. She just followed as Nate carried her daughter through the snow, back toward the horses, back toward safety. Lucy's arms wrapped around his neck. I'm sorry, Mr. Nate. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't cause any trouble, little one. But the man said, the man was wrong. Nate's voice was fierce. About you, about your mama, about everything. Are we still gonna have to leave? No. Nate met Clara's eyes over Lucy's head. You're not going anywhere. Ever. They rode back to the ranch in silence. Clara held Lucy in front of her, the child's small body pressed against her chest, Nate's coat wrapped around them both. She couldn't stop shaking. even after they reached the house. Even after Mrs. Chen rushed Lucy into the kitchen, stripped off her wet clothes, wrapped her in heated blankets. Even after Dr. Whitmore arrived, examined Lucy, pronounced her cold, but unharmed. "She's strong," the doctor said. "Lucky too. Another hour out there." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Clara sat beside Lucy's bed in the main house watching her daughter sleep. The color had returned to her cheeks. Her breathing was deep and even. Nate appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Chen made tea." "I'm not thirsty." "Clara." "She almost died." Clara's voice broke. "Because of me. Because I brought her here. Because I wasn't watching. Because a little girl heard a cruel man say cruel things and wanted to defend the people she loves." Nate crossed the room, knelt beside her chair. "That's not your fault. That's not anyone's fault except Whitfield's. If you hadn't found her, but I did. If the snow had been worse, but it wasn't. If... Clara." Nate took her hands. "Stop. Look at her. She's alive. She's warm. She's safe." Clara looked. Lucy stirred in her sleep, mumbled something, then settled deeper into the pillows. "She called this place home," Clara whispered. "That first morning. She asked if we could stay and I couldn't answer her." "Can you answer now?" Clara turned to face him. His eyes were steady, patient, full of something she was too tired to name. "Whitfield will make trouble. I know. The town will talk. Let them. You could lose everything. I've already lost everything once. Built it back from nothing." Nate's grip tightened on her hands. "I can do it again if I have to. But I won't lose you. Not to Whitfield. Not to fear. Not to anything." Clara's defenses crumbled. All the walls she'd built, all the armor she'd worn, all the careful distance she'd maintained. Gone. Destroyed by a man who knelt beside her chair and looked at her like she was worth saving. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I don't know how to trust. How to hope. How to let someone in without waiting for them to leave." "You don't have to know." Nate raised her hands to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "You just have to try. And if I fail, then we fail together. Pick each other up. Try again." Clara laughed. It came out broken, half sob, half release. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple." He stood, pulled her to her feet. "Stay, Clara. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Not because Lucy needs a home. Stay because you want to. Because this is where you belong." She looked at him. Really looked. At the lines around his eyes, the gray at his temples, the strength in his jaw, and the gentleness in his gaze. She thought about Daniel, about the life they'd built, about the dreams they'd shared before fever took everything. Daniel would want her to live, would want her to find happiness again, would want Lucy to have a father who looked at her like she hung the moon. "Yes," Clara said. The word felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely irreversible. "Yes. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll try. Yes to all of it." Nate's face transformed, the worry lines smoothed, the tension in his shoulders released. He pulled her into his arms, held her tight, his heart pounding against her cheek. "Thank God," he whispered into her hair. "Thank God." They stood there wrapped around each other, while snow fell outside, and Lucy slept peacefully, and the future stretched before them, uncertain and beautiful. Then Lucy's voice came from the bed, small and sleepy. "Does this mean we can stay forever, Mama?" Clara laughed through her tears. Nate released her just enough to turn toward the child. "Yes, little one." His voice was rough. "Forever." Lucy smiled, closed her eyes, and went back to sleep. Clara looked at Nate. He looked at her. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, She let herself believe that forever might actually be possible. The next morning brought trouble. Clara woke to shouting in the yard. She threw on clothes, checked Lucy, found her still sleeping, and ran outside. Whitfield was back, but he wasn't alone. 3 men on horseback flanked him. Hard-faced men with badges on their chests. Behind them, a wagon with Eleanor Crawford sitting straight-backed on the seat. "What is this?" Nate's voice carried across the yard. Whitfield's smile was triumphant. "This, Mr. Cole, is the consequence of your choices." One of the badge-wearing men dismounted. "Mr. Cole, I'm Deputy Harrison. We've received a complaint." "What kind of complaint?" The deputy's eyes found Clara. "Regarding Mrs. Dawson. Accusations of child endangerment." Clara's blood turned to ice. "That's absurd," Nate said. "A child was found nearly frozen yesterday." Eleanor Crawford's voice rang out. "Found by whom? The very man who's been housing her mother under questionable circumstances." "She ran away," Clara said. She heard nothing." Whitfield cut her off. "A child that young doesn't wander into a snowstorm alone, not unless she's running from something, or someone." "You son of a—" Nate started forward. Sam caught his arm. "Easy, boss." The deputy held up a hand. "We're not here to make accusations, just to investigate. Mrs. Dawson will need to speak with you, and with the child. She's sleeping. She nearly died yesterday." "Then we'll wait." Clara's world narrowed to a single point of focus. They were going to take Lucy, going to question her, going to twist whatever she said into something monstrous. She'd lost everything before: her parents, Daniel, her home. She would not lose her daughter. "You want to question someone?" Clara's voice was steady, cold, a voice she didn't recognize. "Question me. Question Mr. Cole. Question anyone you want. But you will not touch my daughter." The deputy's eyebrows rose. "Ma'am, I said no." Clara stepped forward, placing herself between the men and the house. "She's 5 years old. She got lost in a snowstorm. That's not endangerment. That's a child being curious. And if you think for 1 second I'm going to let you traumatize her with accusations dreamed up by a bitter woman and a banker with a grudge, you're out of your mind." Eleanor Crawford's face reddened. "How dare you?" "How dare I?" Clara spun to face her. "How dare you? You don't know me. You don't know my daughter. You don't know anything except gossip and spite and whatever poison Marcus Whitfield has been feeding you." "I know what I see. A desperate woman latching onto the first man who showed her kindness, using her child as leverage. Using my—" Clara laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "I walked 500 miles to keep that child alive. I starved so she could eat. I slept in barns and ditches and charity wards. I watched her waste away to nothing and prayed every night that God would take me instead." Her voice cracked. She didn't care. "And then I found this place. Found people who saw me as more than a burden. Found a man who treated me with respect instead of pity. And you want to take that away because it doesn't fit your idea of proper—" Eleanor's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "I am not a scandal." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried further than a shout. "I am a mother, and I will burn this whole town down before I let you touch my daughter." Silence. The deputy shifted uncomfortably. The other two exchanged glances. Even Whitfield looked uncertain. Then a new voice cut through the tension. "I think we've heard enough." Reverend Moore stepped out of the crowd that had gathered. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Deputy Harrison, I've known Marcus Whitfield for 15 years. I've known Eleanor Crawford for 20. And I've known women like Mrs. Dawson my whole life." He paused. "The first two think they own this town. The third thinks she has to fight alone." He turned to Clara. "You don't, child. Not here, not anymore." Catherine Wells appeared beside him. Then the blacksmith. Then a woman Clara didn't recognize, and another and another. Townsfolk. Ordinary people, stepping forward, standing with her. This investigation is over. The deputy's voice was firm. Unless you have actual evidence of wrongdoing, Mr. Whitfield, I suggest you take your complaints elsewhere. Whitfield's face contorted. You can't. I can. And I am. The deputy mounted his horse. Good day, Mr. Cole, Mrs. Dawson. He rode out. The other badges followed. Whitfield sat frozen on his horse, fury and humiliation warring on his face. Eleanor Crawford wouldn't look at anyone. This isn't over, Whitfield said finally. The loan is between you and me. Nate's voice was ice. And I'll be finding a new bank before the week is out. Whitfield turned his horse and rode away without another word. Eleanor's wagon followed. The yard cleared slowly. Townsfolk approached Clara one by one, offering words of support, squeezing her hand, welcoming her to a community she'd thought had rejected her. When they were finally alone, Clara's legs gave out. Nate caught her before she hit the ground, lifted her like she weighed nothing, carried her to the porch steps and sat her down gently. Breathe, he said. I can't. Yes, you can. In. Out. Again. She breathed. In. Out. In. Out. I threatened to burn down the town, she said finally. You did. In front of the deputy. In front of everyone. I might have lost my mind. Nate laughed. It was a warm sound full of relief and something deeper. Clara Dawson, that was the sanest thing I've ever seen. How is that possible? Because you fought. He took her face in his hands. You stopped running. You stopped hiding. You stood your ground and fought for what matters. I was terrified. Of course you were. That's what courage is. Clara leaned into his touch. What happens now? Now. Nate pressed his forehead to hers. Now we build something. Together. Even with Whitfield making trouble. Even with that. Even with Eleanor Crawford glaring at me in church. Especially with that. Clara laughed. It came out shaky, wet with tears she hadn't realized she was crying. I love you, she said. The words surprised her. She hadn't meant to say them, hadn't even known she was feeling them until they were out in the open, hanging between them like a prayer. Nate went still. His hands on her face trembled slightly. Say that again. I love you. Easier now. Truer. I love you and I'm terrified, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I love you anyway. Clara. Her name was a whisper. A promise. I've loved you since you stood at my fence line and offered to work instead of beg. I've loved you since you said grace over a bowl of stew like it was manna from heaven. I've loved you every single day since, and I will love you every single day until I die. He kissed her. Not gentle, not careful. A kiss that said everything words couldn't. A kiss that rewrote history and promised futures and demanded nothing except that she stay. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucy's voice came from the doorway. Does this mean Mr. Nate is going to be my papa? Clara laughed through her tears. Nate turned, opened his arms. Lucy ran into them, small body pressing against his chest. Would you like that little one? More than anything. Clara wrapped her arms around them both. Her daughter, her future husband, her family. The snow had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds. And for the first time in her life, Clara Dawson believed in forever. The wedding was set for Sunday. Clara stood in front of the small mirror in her cabin, hands trembling as she tried to button her dress. Mrs. Chen had altered one of her old gowns, adding lace at the collar, taking in the waist. It was still simple, still worn in places, but it was hers. Mama, you look like a princess. Lucy sat on the bed legs, swinging, face bright with excitement. She wore the blue dress Mrs. Chen had made for her white buttons gleaming. I don't feel like a princess. Why not? Clara's fingers fumbled another button. Because princesses don't have shaking hands. Maybe they do. Lucy hopped off the bed, came to stand beside her mother. Maybe princesses are just regular people who get scared, but do brave things anyway. Clara looked down at her daughter, 5 years old and wiser than most adults she'd known. When did you get so smart? Mr. Nate says I was born that way. Clara laughed despite her nerves. Mr. Nate is going to be your papa after today. I know. Lucy's smile could have lit up the whole territory. I've been practicing. Practicing what? Calling him papa. I wanted to make sure it sounded right. She paused. Does it sound right, Mama, when I say it? Clara knelt down, took her daughter's hands. It sounds perfect, baby. A knock at the door made them both jump. It's me. Mrs. Chen's voice came through. Time to go. Clara took a deep breath, then another, then one more. Ready? Lucy asked. No. Yes, maybe. Ready. The church was full. Clara hadn't expected that. She'd expected a small ceremony, a few witnesses, a quick exchange of vows. Instead, every pew was packed. Ranchers and their wives, shopkeepers and their families, people she recognized from town and people she'd never seen before. They'd come to watch, to judge, to see if the scandal would play out the way Eleanor Crawford had predicted. Or maybe, Clara thought, as Catherine Wells smiled at her from the third row, maybe they'd come for something else entirely. Nate waited at the altar. He wore his good suit, the one she'd seen him wear to town that first Sunday. His hair was combed back. His boots were polished. His hands were clasped in front of him, knuckles white with tension. Then he saw her. His whole face changed. The tension melted away. His eyes went soft and bright at the same time. He looked at her like she was the only person in the room, the only person in the world. Clara's fear dissolved. She walked toward him. Lucy's hand in hers. Every step felt like coming home. Reverend Moore smiled as they reached the altar. Who gives this woman to be married? Silence. Clara hadn't thought about that. She had no father, no brother, no one to speak for her. Then Sam's voice rang out from the front pew. We do. Clara turned. Sam stood with Ruth beside him, Mrs. Chen on his other side, Tommy behind them, grinning. All of us, Sam continued. The whole ranch. We give her gladly. Clara's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing to cry before the ceremony even started. Nate took her hands. His grip was warm, steady, anchoring her when she felt like she might float away. Dearly beloved, Reverend Moore began. The words washed over Clara like water. She heard them, but distantly, like they were coming from far away. All she could focus on was Nate's face, Nate's hands, Nate's eyes which never left hers. Do you, Nathaniel Harrison Cole, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. No hesitation, no doubt. Do you, Clara Elizabeth Dawson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Clara opened her mouth. The words stuck. Not from fear, not from doubt, from the sheer weight of the moment, from the realization that this was real, that she was standing here in a church full of people who'd chosen to support her, about to marry a man who'd seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. Clara. Nate's voice was gentle. She looked at him, really looked, at the lines around his eyes, the gray at his temples, the patience in his expression. I do, she whispered. Then stronger. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. Reverend Moore smiled. You may kiss your bride. Nate pulled her close. The kiss was soft, sweet, a promise sealed in front of God and everyone. The church erupted in applause. Lucy tugged at Nate's coat. Can I call you Papa now? Nate laughed, lifted her into his arms. You can call me whatever you want, little one. Papa. Lucy tested the word. Papa, papa, papa. That's the one. Clara wrapped her arms around them both, laughing and crying at the same time. The applause continued. Someone whooped. Tommy's voice carried over the crowd. About time, boss. They walked out of the church into pale winter sunlight. People lined the steps throwing rice, calling congratulations. Clara caught Catherine Wells's eye, saw her nodding with approval. Saw the blacksmith and his wife, the mercantile owner, the doctor, all of them smiling. Then she saw Eleanor Crawford. The woman stood apart from the crowd, face tight, arms crossed. Their eyes met. Clara expected hostility, contempt, the same venom she'd faced before. Instead, Eleanor looked away first. It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. A crack in the armor. A recognition that the battle was over. Clara decided that was enough. The reception at the ranch lasted until dark. Someone had brought a fiddle. Someone else had brought a guitar. Music filled the yard as ranch hands danced with townswomen, as children chased each other through the snow, as Mrs. Chen served food to anyone who stood still long enough. Clara danced with Nate, danced with Sam, danced with Tommy, who stepped on her feet 3 times and apologized profusely each time. She danced until her feet ached, until her cheeks hurt from smiling, until the joy in her chest felt like it might burst through her skin. Happy? Nate asked, pulling her close for a slow song. Terrified. Of what? That I'll wake up. She rested her head on his shoulder. That this will all disappear. It won't. You can't promise that. Watch me. He tilted her chin up, forced her to meet his eyes. I, Nathaniel Cole, promise that this is real. That I am real. That tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, you will wake up in my house, in my arms, in my life. And nothing, not Whitfield, not Eleanor Crawford, not God himself, is going to change that. That might be blasphemy. Then I'll apologize to God later. He kissed her forehead. Right now, I'm busy loving my wife. My wife. The words sent a shiver through her. Good, warm, terrifying, and wonderful all at once. I love you, she said. I know. He grinned. You married me. Kind of gave it away. Clara laughed, and the sound surprised her. Easy, free, the laugh of someone who'd forgotten how to be afraid. The party wound down slowly. Guests left in wagons and on horseback, calling final congratulations into the cold night air. The ranch hands stumbled toward the bunkhouse full of food and good cheer. Finally, it was just them. Clara and Nate and Lucy, who'd fallen asleep on Mrs. Chen's lap and been carried to bed hours ago. They stood on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching the stars emerge. Mrs. Cole, Nate said. Mr. Cole. Has a nice ring to it. It does. Clara leaned into him. I never thought I'd have this again. What? Any of it. A home. A family. Someone who looks at me like I matter. You matter. His arm tightened around her. You've always mattered. The world just forgot to tell you. And you're going to remind me. Every day. Every single day for the rest of our lives. They went inside together. The house was quiet, warm, full of the echoes of celebration. Clara climbed the stairs to the bedroom, Nate's hand in hers. Tomorrow there would be work. There would be challenges. There would be Whitfield's loan and Eleanor's resentment and all the ordinary difficulties of building a life. But tonight, there was just this. 2 people who'd found each other against all odds. 2 people who'd chosen hope over fear. 2 people who were finally irrevocably home. The first month of marriage passed in a blur. Clara moved into the main house. Her few belongings merged with Nate's filling spaces she hadn't realized were empty. Lucy got her own room decorated with wildflowers, Mrs. Chen pressed and framed. The ranch work continued. Clara kept the books now officially. She found a rhythm in the numbers, a satisfaction in making everything balance. The hands noticed the difference. Supplies arrived on time. Payments went out without delay. The whole operation ran smoother. "You're too good at this," Sam told her one afternoon. "Is that a complaint?" "It's a warning." He smiled slightly. "Pretty soon you'll be running the whole place." "I thought Nate ran the place." "Nate runs the cattle and the land. You're running everything else." Sam paused. "It suits you." It did. Clara hadn't expected that. Hadn't expected to find purpose in ledgers and supply orders, in managing the kitchen, in making sure everyone was fed and clothed and cared for. But she had. And it filled something in her she hadn't known was empty. Nate watched it happen with something like awe. "You're amazing," he told her one night, finding her at his desk surrounded by papers. "I'm working." "I know, that's what's amazing." He perched on the edge of the desk. 3 months ago you were starving at my fence line. Now you're running my ranch." "Our ranch." "Our ranch." He smiled. "I like the sound of that." "You should. You're stuck with me now." "Promise." Clara looked up at him. Her husband. Still strange to think. Still wonderful. "Promise." He kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper. The papers scattered. Neither of them cared. Spring arrived without warning. One day the ground was frozen. The next water dripped from the eaves and the first green shoots pushed through the mud. Clara stood in the kitchen garden, hands dirty, face turned toward the sun. She'd been planting beans. Simple work. Meditative. Mrs. Chen appeared beside her. "You're glowing." "It's the sun." "It's not the sun." The older woman studied her with knowing eyes. "How long?" Clara's hands stilled. "What?" "How long since you bled?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She counted backward, counted again. Felt the blood drain from her face. 6 weeks, she whispered. Mrs. Chen nodded. "I thought so. I haven't been paying attention. With the wedding and the work and—" "You've been busy being happy." Mrs. Chen smiled. "Happiness makes you forget things. Important things." Clara pressed a hand to her stomach. Flat. Normal. No different than yesterday. But different. Everything was different. "Does Mr. Nate know?" "No." Clara's voice shook. "I didn't know. I don't even know for sure now." "You know." Mrs. Chen touched her arm. "Women always know, even when we pretend we don't." Clara sat down hard in the dirt. Her legs wouldn't hold her. A baby. After everything. After the months of starving, the endless walking, the despair so deep she'd prayed for death. After thinking she'd never have anything good again. A baby. "Clara!" Nate's voice came from across the yard. "Clara, what's wrong?" She looked up. He was running toward her, face tight with worry. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands on her shoulders. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "No." Clara laughed. It came out wrong, half sob, half hiccup. "No, I'm not hurt." "Then what?" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. Nate's face went blank, then confused. Then something she'd never seen before broke across his features like sunrise. "Pregnant?" "I think so. I'm not sure. But I think—" He kissed her. Hard, desperate, pulled her into his arms, and held her so tight she couldn't breathe. "Pregnant," he said again. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." "Clara." His voice cracked. "Clara, I never thought. After Margaret left, I thought this was it. Just me and the ranch forever. I made peace with it. And then you came and Lucy, and now—" Now I have everything." He pulled back just enough to see her face. "Everything I never let myself want." Clara cupped his face in her dirt-stained hands. "Are you happy?" "Happy doesn't even begin to cover it." Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. "You tell Lucy." Clara and Nate looked at each other. then looked toward the house where Lucy was probably helping Ruth with the washing. "Together?" Nate asked. "Together." They found Lucy in the kitchen standing on a stool carefully drying dishes. "Mama, Papa." She beamed at them. "Ruth said I'm an excellent helper." "I'm sure you are, little one." Nate lifted her off the stool. "We need to tell you something." Lucy's face fell. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby." Clara stroked her daughter's hair. "Not trouble. Something good." "What?" Clara looked at Nate. He nodded. "You're going to have a brother or sister." Lucy blinked. "What?" "There's a baby growing in Mama's tummy. A new baby, for our family." Lucy's eyes went wide, then wider. Then she let out a shriek that could have been heard in town. "A baby. A baby. I'm gonna be a big sister." "You're gonna be a big sister." Lucy launched herself at Clara's arms, wrapping tight around her neck. "I always wanted a baby I prayed for, one I prayed and God said yes." Clara held her daughter, tears streaming down her face. "He certainly did, baby. Can we name it after Papa's horse?" Nate laughed. "We're not naming the baby Dusty." "Why not? Dusty's a good name." "For a horse, not for a person." What about Daniel?" Lucy's voice went soft. "Like my first papa?" Clara's breath caught. She looked at Nate. He didn't hesitate. "If it's a boy, Daniel would be perfect. And if it's a girl, then we'll think of something just as good." Lucy nodded solemnly. "I'll help pick. I'm excellent at names." "I'm sure you are, little one." The news spread through the ranch by supper time. Tommy whooped so loud the horses startled. Sam clapped Nate on the back, eyes suspiciously bright. Ruth started knitting immediately, muttering about patterns and yarn colors. Mrs. Chen served extra helpings at dinner, declaring that Clara needed to eat for two now. Clara sat at the table surrounded by people who'd become family, carrying new life inside her, and felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of trouble. Whitfield was still out there, still angry. The loan was still uncertain. The future was still unknown. But peace anyway, deep in her bones. The kind that came from knowing she wasn't alone anymore. That night in their bedroom, Nate held her close. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For staying, for trying, for giving me a family I never thought I'd have." "You gave me the same thing." "Did I?" Clara shifted, found his face in the darkness. "You gave me back my life, Nate. Not just shelter or work or safety. My actual life. The person I forgot I could be. You were always that person." "Maybe. But I couldn't see her anymore. Not until you showed me." He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. "I love you, Clara Cole." "I love you too, Nathaniel Cole." They fell asleep, tangled together, winter finally releasing its grip outside the window, spring waiting to be born. Just like their baby. Just like their future. Just like every good thing that had grown from that frozen day at the fence line, when a starving woman had offered her pride and a rancher had offered something better. Hope. 2 weeks later, Whitfield made his final move. Clara was in the office reconciling accounts when Nate burst through the door. "He sold the loan." Clara's pen stopped. "What, Whitfield? He sold our mortgage to the railroad company." The blood drained from Clara's face. "Can he do that?" "Apparently. The paperwork came through this morning." Nate threw a stack of papers on the desk. "New terms. They want to call it in. All of it. 60 days. Clara grabbed the papers, scanned them quickly. Her bookkeeping mind found the numbers, added them, understood the impossibility. "This is everything, the whole ranch." "I know. We can't raise this in 60 days, not even close." "I know." Clara looked up at him. His face was gray, defeated in a way she'd never seen. "What do we do?" "I don't know. Nate sank into a chair. I've fought droughts, fought disease, fought rustlers and market crashes and everything else this land could throw at me, but I don't know how to fight this. Clara stood, walked around the desk, knelt in front of him. Then we fight it together. Clara, you told me once that some things are worth more than land. She took his hands. You told me you'd burn this ranch down before you let them use me as a bargaining chip. I meant it. I know you did. And I'm telling you now, I'd do the same. She squeezed his hands. We're not losing this ranch. Not to Whitfield. Not to the railroad. Not to anyone. How we don't have the money. Then we find it. Or we find another way. Clara's jaw set. I didn't survive 5 months of hell to give up now. And neither did you. Something shifted in Nate's expression. The defeat faded slightly, replaced by something that looked almost like hope. You're serious. Deadly serious. Even pregnant. Even with Lucy to think about. Especially pregnant. Especially with Lucy. Clara stood, pulled him to his feet. This is our home, Nate. Our family's home. And I will not let some petty, vindictive banker take it from us. Nate stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly a smile spread across his face. God, I love you. Good, because you're stuck with me. Clara grabbed the papers again. Now, let's figure out how to save our ranch. They worked through the night. Clara pored over the accounts, looking for assets they could liquidate, expenses they could cut. Nate made lists of people who might help, favors he could call in, options they hadn't considered. By dawn, they had a plan. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't guaranteed. But it was something. The cattle drive, Nate said. If we move the herd to market early, we can get better prices. Spring demand is high. That's risky, moving cattle in unpredictable weather. I know, but it's our best shot at raising cash quickly. Clara nodded. What else? I can sell the timber rights on the north pasture. It's not much, but it's something. And the equipment, the extra wagon, the tools we're not using. Every bit helps. Clara did the math in her head. It's not enough. We're still short. I know. Silence. The weight of it pressed down on them. Then Clara straightened. What about the women? What? The ranchers' wives, Catherine Wells, the others who stood with me at the church. Clara's mind was racing. Some of them have their own money, inheritance, savings, things their husbands don't control. You want to ask them for loans. I want to ask them for investment. Clara grabbed paper, started writing. A cooperative. They invest in the ranch, they share in the profits. It's not charity, it's business. Nate stared at her. You're brilliant. I'm desperate. There's a difference. No. He caught her hand, stopped her writing. You're brilliant, and desperate, and stubborn as hell. He kissed her knuckles. And I am the luckiest man alive. Clara flushed. We don't know if it'll work. It'll work. Nate's voice was certain. Because you're the one doing it. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of Clara's life. She rode to every ranch in the territory, sat in kitchens with women she barely knew, explained her plan, showed her numbers, asked for trust she hadn't earned. Some said no. Some laughed. Some looked at her with the same contempt Eleanor Crawford had shown. But some said yes. Catherine Wells invested first. Then Ruth's sister in town. Then a widow from the next territory over who'd heard about Clara's story and wanted to help. The money trickled in, slowly, painfully, but steadily. Meanwhile, Nate prepared for the cattle drive. He and Sam selected the best hands, the strongest horses, the route most likely to succeed. They worked from before dawn until after dark, racing against the 60-day deadline. Clara barely slept. Between the investments and the accounts and the pregnancy exhaustion, she was running on nothing but willpower. Mrs. Chen watched with worried eyes. You'll harm yourself. And the baby. I can rest when the ranch is safe. You can rest now, for 1 hour. I insist. Clara wanted to argue, but Mrs. Chen's face left no room for debate. She slept for 3 hours. When she woke, Lucy was curled beside her small hand resting on Clara's stomach. I'm protecting the baby, Lucy said when Clara opened her eyes. While you rest. Clara's heart broke and healed at the same time. Thank you, baby. Mrs. Chen said you're working too hard. Mrs. Chen is probably right. Papa said you're saving the ranch. Papa is definitely right. Lucy's face went serious. Are the bad men going to take our home? Clara pulled her daughter close. No, baby. No one is taking our home. Promise? Clara thought about the numbers, the investments, the cattle drive, the 60 days ticking down. Promise, she said, and meant it. The cattle drive left on a Tuesday. Clara stood in the yard watching Nate mount his horse. Sam was already in position. The hands were ready. 200 head of cattle milled in the holding pen ready to move. 2 weeks, Nate said. 3 at most. Be careful. Always am. Liar. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. They both knew the risks. Weather rustlers, stampedes, 1,000 things that could go wrong. I love you, Clara said. I know. I'm serious. I know. He leaned down, kissed her. I'll come back. I promise. You'd better. I'm not raising this baby alone. You won't have to. He straightened, tipped his hat. Take care of our family, Mrs. Cole. Take care of yourself, Mr. Cole. He rode out. The cattle followed. Clara watched until they disappeared over the hill. Then she went back to work. The next 2 weeks were agony. No word, no news. Just silence and waiting and the slow march of days. Clara threw herself into the remaining investments. 3 more women signed on. The numbers climbed closer to the goal. Lucy helped where she could. She collected eggs, helped Mrs. Chen cook. Sat with Clara in the evenings, chattering about the baby, about Papa, about everything and nothing. When's Papa coming home? Soon, baby. How soon? I don't know. What if he doesn't come back? Clara's heart clenched. He'll come back. But what if... Lucy. Clara knelt, took her daughter's hands. Your Papa promised, and your Papa keeps his promises. Lucy's eyes searched hers. Like you promised we wouldn't lose our home. Exactly like that. Okay. Lucy nodded solemnly. I believe you. Day 12 brought news. A rider appeared over the hill pushing hard toward the ranch. Clara ran to meet him, heart pounding. It was Tommy. They're coming, he shouted, grinning wide. Boss sold the whole herd, best prices in years. Clara's knees went weak. Everyone's okay. Everyone's fine. They'll be here by nightfall. Clara didn't cry. She absolutely did not cry. Mrs. Cole? Tommy's grin faded. Ma'am, are you all right? I'm perfect, Clara said. I'm absolutely perfect. She cried anyway. Nate rode in at sunset. Clara was waiting on the porch. She didn't run to meet him, but she wanted to. God, she wanted to. He dismounted, handed his horse to a waiting hand and walked toward her. His face was weathered, tired, covered in trail dust. And smiling. Smiling like the sun had just risen. We did it, he said. How much amount? Enough. He climbed the porch steps, pulled her into his arms. Combined with your investments, we have enough. Clara sagged against him. You're sure? I'm sure. I counted it myself. 3 times. He pulled back, studied her face. The ranch is safe, Clara. We're safe. She kissed him, long and deep and full of everything she couldn't say. I love you, she managed when they finally broke apart. I love you too. His hand found her stomach. Both of you. All 3 of us, Lucy corrected, appearing in the doorway. Papa, you're home. Nate scooped her up, held her tight. I'm home, little one, for good this time. Did you save the ranch? Your mama saved the ranch. I just helped. Lucy looked at Clara with new eyes. Mama's a hero. Your mama's always been a hero. Nate set Lucy down, took Clara's hand. I just had to wait for everyone else to notice. They went inside together. The whole household was waiting. Mrs. Chen had dinner ready. Sam and Ruth were there. The hands crowded into the kitchen laughing and celebrating. Clara sat at the head of the table, Nate beside her, Lucy in her lap. Family, home, future, all the things she'd lost, all the things she'd found again. Outside, the last light faded from the sky. Inside, the laughter continued. Tomorrow they'd pay off the loan. Tomorrow the ranch would officially be theirs. But tonight they celebrated. Tonight they were home. The bank was quiet when they walked in. Clara held the payment documents against her chest, fingers gripping tight enough to wrinkle the edges. Nate walked beside her, his presence solid and steady. Behind them, Sam waited with the wagon armed and watchful. Marcus Whitfield looked up from his desk. His face went pale. Mr. Cole, Mrs. Cole. Whitfield. Nate's voice was ice. We're here to settle the loan. The loan was sold to the railroad, who sold it back to you last week when they realized they couldn't enforce the terms. Clara stepped forward. Yes, we know. We've been watching. Whitfield's jaw tightened. How? I have friends now. People who keep me informed. Clara set the documents on his desk. Full payment, every cent, plus interest. The banker stared at the papers, then at Clara, then at Nate. This is impossible. You couldn't have raised this much in 60 days. 63 days, actually. Clara smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Would you like to count it? Whitfield's hands shook as he reached for the banknotes. He counted once, twice, 3 times. It's all here, he said finally. Of course it is. How? Does it matter? Nate leaned forward, palms flat on the desk. The debt is paid. The ranch is ours. Free and clear. Whitfield looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. I need to process this. It'll take 10 minutes. Clara's voice hardened. We'll wait. They waited. Clara watched Whitfield's hands as he filled out the paperwork. Watched them tremble. Watched them hesitate over each line. He'd tried to destroy them. Tried to use her reputation, her vulnerability, her past as weapons. He'd underestimated her. He'd underestimated all of them. Sign here, Whitfield said, pushing the final document across the desk. And here, and here. Nate signed. Clara signed beside him. Their names together on the deed. Partners in everything. Congratulations, Whitfield said. The word sounded like it hurt. Thank you. Clara gathered the documents. We'll be taking our business elsewhere from now on. Mrs. Cole. Good day, Mr. Whitfield. She walked out without looking back. Nate followed. They climbed into the wagon beside Sam. Done? Sam asked. Done. Nate held up the deed. It's ours. Sam grinned. Actually grinned, which Clara had seen maybe twice in all the months she'd known him. Let's go home then. The wagon rolled toward the ranch. Clara sat between the two men, the deed clutched in her hands, something loosening in her chest that she hadn't realized was tight. You're crying, Nate said quietly. I'm not. Clara. Fine, I'm crying. A little? She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I just never thought. After everything. I know. He pulled her against his side. I know. They rode in silence the rest of the way. But it was a good silence. A complete silence. The silence of something finally finished. The ranch celebrated that night like never before. Mrs. Chen cooked enough food to feed 3 ranches. Tommy broke out a fiddle no one knew he had. Ruth sang songs her grandmother had taught her. Lucy danced until she fell asleep standing up, and Sam carried her to bed without being asked. Clara sat on the porch, watching it all, one hand on her growing belly. 5 months along now. The baby moved, sometimes little flutters she was only beginning to recognize. Dr. Whitmore said everything looked healthy. Said she was strong. She felt strong. For the first time in years, she felt strong. "What are you thinking about?" Nate settled beside her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He passed her one. "Everything." Clara sipped the coffee. "Nothing. I don't know." "That's a lot." "It's been a lot." She leaned against him. "A year ago, I was sleeping in a barn outside Helena. Lucy hadn't eaten in 2 days. I was planning how far we could walk before we collapsed. And now I have a home, a husband, a baby on the way. People who actually care whether I live or die. More than care." Nate's arm tightened around her. "We love you, Clara. All of us." "I know." Her voice caught. "That's what I can't believe. That it's real. That it's going to last." "It's real." "How do you know?" "Because I'm sitting here with you." He turned her face toward his. "Because I wake up every morning and you're still there. Because every single day you prove that the best decision I ever made was taking a chance on a starving woman at my fence line." Clara's eyes burned. "You make it sound like you saved me." "We saved each other." He kissed her forehead. "That's how it works." The music swelled behind them. Laughter rang out. The ranch was alive with joy. Clara closed her eyes and let herself feel it. All of it. The warmth, the love, the impossible miracle of belonging. "I'm happy," she whispered. "Good." "No, I mean, really happy. The kind of happy I forgot existed." Nate pulled her closer. "Get used to it, Mrs. Cole. It's going to last a long time." She believed him. For the first time in her life, she actually believed him. Summer came fast and hot. Clara's belly grew. The baby kicked harder, stronger, making its presence known. Lucy talked to it constantly, pressing her ear against Clara's stomach, reporting back what she heard. "It says it wants to come out," Lucy announced one morning. "Not yet." Clara laughed. "A few more weeks." "But it's bored in there." "How do you know?" "It told me." Lucy nodded seriously. "We have conversations." Nate, passing through the kitchen, caught Clara's eye. She shrugged. He grinned. "What does the baby talk about?" he asked. "Lots of things. What it wants for breakfast. Whether it's a boy or a girl. When it can meet Dusty." "And what does it want for breakfast?" Lucy considered. "Dumplings." Mrs. Chen, already at the stove, didn't miss a beat. "Dumplings coming right up." The ranch thrived that summer. The cattle were fat. The crops were healthy. The cooperative Clara had formed with the ranchers' wives was expanding, bringing new investment, new ideas, new connections. Catherine Wells came by every week now. She and Clara pored over accounts together, planning for the future. Their children played in the yard while they worked. "You've built something special here," Catherine said one afternoon. "We built it together." "No, you built it." Catherine smiled. "You had the vision, the courage, the sheer stubborn refusal to give up. I had help. Everyone has help. Not everyone knows what to do with it." Clara looked out the window. Lucy was chasing Catherine's daughter through the garden. Mrs. Chen was hanging laundry. Tommy was teaching one of the new hands how to rope. Family, community, home. Things she'd lost. Things she'd found again. Things she'd fought to keep. "Thank you," Clara said. "For what?" "For being the first one to invest, when everyone else thought I was crazy." Catherine laughed. "I didn't think you were crazy. I thought you were desperate. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Desperate people take chances. Crazy people don't know the odds." Catherine squeezed her hand. "You knew exactly what you were up against. You just refused to let it stop you." Clara's throat tightened. "I couldn't afford to fail." No, you couldn't. Catherine stood. And that's why you didn't. 3 weeks before the baby was due, Eleanor Crawford came to the ranch. Clara was in the garden when she saw the wagon approaching. She recognized Eleanor immediately, even from a distance. Her first instinct was to hide. Her second was to fight. She did neither. She just stood there, hands dirty, belly huge, and waited. Eleanor stopped the wagon, climbed down slowly. She looked older than Clara remembered. Tired. Something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Mrs. Cole? Mrs. Crawford. Silence stretched between them. Clara didn't fill it. I came to apologize, Eleanor said finally. Clara blinked. Excuse me? I said I came to apologize. The words seemed to cost Eleanor something. For what I did. What I said. How I treated you. Why? Because I was wrong. Eleanor's voice cracked. And because my daughter told me if I didn't make things right, she'd never speak to me again. Clara hadn't known Eleanor had a daughter. Hadn't thought about her life beyond the cruelty. What changed? I did. Eleanor looked away. My husband died 3 years ago. Left me with nothing but debts and a big house. I thought if I could just keep up appearances, no one would know. Know what? That I was as desperate as you. Eleanor met her eyes. That I was one bad winter away from standing at someone's fence line begging for work. Clara's anger shifted. Didn't disappear but changed shape. Became something softer. So when you saw me, I saw everything I was afraid of becoming. Eleanor's laugh was bitter. I thought if I could push you out, make you disappear, I could pretend it wasn't possible, that I was safe. But you weren't. No, I wasn't. Eleanor straightened. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong. About you. About Mr. Cole. About everything. Clara studied the woman in front of her. The carefully maintained dress that was starting to fray at the seams. The hair that hadn't been styled quite as carefully as before. The desperation hiding behind pride. She recognized it. All of it. Sit down, Clara said. What? Sit down. I'll get you some water. Clara gestured toward the porch. You look like you could use it. Eleanor's face crumpled. Just for a second. Then she pulled herself together. Thank you. They sat on the porch together. Clara brought water. Mrs. Chen brought cookies without being asked. Lucy came running up, stopped when she saw Eleanor, and looked at her mother with confusion. This is Mrs. Crawford, Clara said. She's come to visit. Is she nice? Eleanor flinched. She's trying to be, Clara said. That counts for something. Lucy considered this. Then she offered Eleanor a cookie. Here. Mrs. Chen makes the best ones. Eleanor took the cookie. Her hand trembled. Thank you. You're welcome. Lucy skipped away, already distracted by something else. Eleanor watched her go. She's beautiful. She is. And the baby? Any day now. I hope. Eleanor stopped, started again. I hope everything goes well. It will. Clara sipped her water. Mrs. Crawford, Eleanor, what is it you actually need? The question hung in the air. Eleanor's mask slipped completely. I'm going to lose my house, she whispered. The bank is calling in my husband's debts. I have nowhere to go. Clara should have felt triumph. Should have savored the irony. The woman who'd tried to destroy her now begging for help. But all she felt was tired, and sad, and something that might have been compassion. Can you work? Clara asked. What? Work. Can you do it? Laundry, mending, cooking. Real work. Eleanor's chin lifted. I can learn. That's not what I asked. I don't know. The admission seemed to cost her everything. I've never had to. Clara thought about it. Thought about what Nate would say, what Mrs. Chen would say, what Sam and Ruth and all the others would say. Then she thought about standing at a fence line, starving, offering to work for bread. There's a cabin on the north end of the property, Clara said. Empty since last winter. It needs work, but it's solid. Eleanor's breath caught. I don't understand. I'm offering you a job, room and board, fair wages. Clara met her eyes. Same deal Nate offered me. Why, after everything I did? Because someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. Clara stood. And because holding grudges takes energy I don't have. Eleanor sat frozen. Then slowly tears began to fall. I don't know what to say. Say yes or no. Those are your choices. Yes. The word came out broken. Yes. Please. Yes. Clara nodded. Be here Monday morning. Early. Mrs. Chen will show you what to do. She went inside before Eleanor could thank her again. She didn't want thanks, didn't need it. She just wanted to stop the cycle. The judgment, the cruelty, the desperate scramble for security at someone else's expense. Maybe it started here. Maybe it started with one person choosing differently. Maybe that was enough. The baby came on a Tuesday. Clara woke before dawn with a cramping in her belly that she tried to ignore, made it through breakfast, made it halfway through the morning accounts. Then her water broke. Nate! Mrs. Chen's voice rang across the ranch. Nate. What followed was chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. Dr. Whitmore arrived within the hour. Ruth took Lucy to Sam's cabin. Mrs. Chen boiled water and gathered linens. Nate paced the hallway, wearing a groove in the floorboards. Clara lay in their bed, riding waves of pain, gripping the headboard until her knuckles went white. You're doing fine, Dr. Whitmore said. Just breathe. Easy for you to say. I've delivered 100 babies, Mrs. Cole. Breathe. She breathed, and pushed, and screamed when the pain got too big to contain. Nate burst through the door. I told you to stay outside, Dr. Whitmore said. I can't. Nate grabbed Clara's hand. I'm staying. This isn't appropriate. I don't care. Nate's face was pale, terrified, determined. I'm not leaving her. Dr. Whitmore sighed. Fine, but stay out of my way. Clara squeezed Nate's hand hard enough to hurt. I love you, she gasped between contractions. I love you too. This is your fault. I know. I'm never doing this again. Whatever you say. I mean it. I believe you. Another contraction hit. Clara screamed. Nate held on. And then suddenly, a different sound filled the room. A baby's cry. It's a boy, Dr. Whitmore announced. A healthy boy. Clara collapsed against the pillows, chest heaving. Nate's face was wet with tears he didn't seem to notice. Mrs. Chen appeared with warm cloths, cleaned the baby, wrapped him tight, placed him in Clara's arms. He was tiny, red-faced and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. Daniel, Clara whispered. What? His name. Daniel. After... She couldn't finish. After your first husband. Nate's voice was thick. It's perfect. You don't mind. Clara. He sat beside her on the bed, one arm around her shoulders, one hand touching the baby's cheek. He's part of your story. Part of what made you who you are. Of course, we honor that. Clara's tears fell onto the baby's blanket. She didn't try to stop them. Daniel Nathaniel Cole, she said. That's his whole name. Daniel Nathaniel Cole. Nate tested the words. Our son. The door opened. Lucy's face appeared. Can I see the baby? Ruth was right behind her, apologetic. I couldn't keep her away any longer. It's okay. Clara beckoned. Come meet your brother Lucy. Lucy crept forward, eyes wide with wonder. She climbed onto the bed, carefully peered at the bundle in Clara's arms. He's so small. He'll grow. He's wrinkly. That'll smooth out. He looks like a potato. Nate laughed. He's a very handsome potato. Lucy considered this. Then she leaned forward and kissed Daniel's forehead. Hi, baby brother. I'm Lucy. I'm going to teach you everything. How to collect eggs and make dumplings and talk to horses. Daniel opened his eyes, dark blue like all newborns. He looked at his sister, and he smiled. He smiled at me, Lucy shrieked. Mama, he smiled. I saw. That means he likes me. Of course he likes you. You're his sister. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were suspiciously bright. Everyone healthy? Everyone's perfect, Clara said. Good. I make soup. New mother needs strength. She disappeared before anyone could thank her. Ruth collected Lucy, promising she could come back later. Dr. Whitmore finished his work, gave instructions Clara barely heard, and left. The room emptied until it was just the three of them. 4 of them now. Clara, Nate, Lucy, and Daniel. A family. You did it, Nate whispered. We did it. No. You. He kissed her forehead. You survived. You fought. You built all of this. I couldn't have done it without you. Maybe not, but you would have found another way. You would have survived. That's who you are, Clara Cole. Clara looked at the baby in her arms, at the man beside her, at the life she'd built from ashes and hope and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. I'm tired, she admitted. Then sleep. What if something happens? Nothing's going to happen. I'm right here. Nate adjusted the pillows, helped her settle more comfortably. Sleep, Clara. I'll watch over you. She believed him. She always believed him now. Clara closed her eyes, felt Daniel's warmth against her chest, felt Nate's presence beside her, felt the ranch humming with life beyond the walls. She slept. 1 year later, Clara stood at the fence line, the same fence line where she'd collapsed, starving and desperate with Lucy in her arms. The same spot where Nate had found them, where everything had changed. She wasn't alone this time. Lucy stood beside her, almost 7 now, tall and strong and confident. Daniel bounced in her arms, grabbing at everything he could reach, his father's dark eyes bright with curiosity. Nate had been called to the barn. Something about a new foal. Clara had offered to wait here at this place that meant so much. Why are we stopped, Mama? Lucy asked. I'm remembering. Remembering what? Clara looked at her daughter, at the girl who'd asked if they were dead, who'd survived hunger and cold and endless uncertainty, who'd blossomed into someone brave and kind and full of life. I'm remembering the day we found our family, Clara said. The day Papa found us. Yes, right here, right at this fence. Lucy looked around. At the posts, the wire, the snow-covered ground. At the ranch house in the distance, smoke rising from the chimney, warmth waiting inside. I don't remember being scared, Lucy said. I just remember being tired. You were both. And now? Clara smiled. Now we're home. Daniel grabbed a fistful of her hair. She untangled it gently, kissing his chubby fingers. This child who'd been conceived in hope, born into love, raised in safety, everything she'd wanted for Lucy, everything she'd thought was impossible. Mrs. Cole. Tommy's voice carried across the field. He was running toward them, waving his arms. What is it? The foal, you gotta see. It's got spots everywhere. Lucy shrieked with excitement. A spotted horse, Mama. Can I go? Go, but be careful. Lucy took off running. Clara watched her go, then turned back to the fence. She'd stood here with nothing, no hope, no future, no reason to believe tomorrow would be better than today. And now she had everything. You look serious. Nate appeared beside her, moving quiet despite his size. I was thinking. About how far we've come. Clara shifted Daniel to her hip. About what it took to get here. Nate leaned against the fence. The same fence where he'd been working that day. Where he'd first seen a starving woman and decided to do something about it. Regrets? He asked. None. You. Not a single one. They stood together watching the ranch, the cattle grazing in the distance, the hands going about their work, Lucy running toward the barn, smoke rising from the chimney. Home. Not just a place, a choice, a commitment, a family built from strangers who became everything to each other. I love you, Clara said. I know. I mean it. I know that too. Nate pulled her close, Daniel squeezed between them. I've known it since you told me to keep my charity and offered to work instead. I've known it every day since. That's a lot of days. Not enough. Never enough. Clara leaned into him, felt his heart beating against her cheek, felt Daniel's warmth, felt the future stretching out before them full of challenges and joys and ordinary miracles. What now? She asked. Now? Nate kissed the top of her head. Now we live. Together. For as long as we've got. And that's enough. Clara. He tilted her face up, made her meet his eyes. That's everything. She kissed him. Soft and deep and full of promise. Behind them, Lucy's laughter rang out from the barn. Ahead of them, the ranch waited. Clara Dawson Cole had come to this fence line with nothing. She was leaving it with everything that mattered. A home built on courage, a family forged in hardship, a love that had grown from a single act of kindness, and a future as wide and bright as the Montana sky. That was more than enough. That was everything.